CHUDE JIDENWO was a Nigerian lawyer, journalist, and media entrepreneur. The founder of Joy Inc., an American benefit corporation with a Nigerian subsidiary whose profits go to charity. He previously led the media group Red Africa and is co-founder of the Future Project. He has been credited as writer, assistant director, host, and associate producer in various programs such as Big Brother Nigeria, Moments with Mo, The Academy, and many more. He established Red Africa and ran communications on President Buhari's 2015 campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a great upgrade 2019 welcome to CHUDE JIDENWO.
When you look at Nigeria, if you are one of those people that likes to look at Nigeria with the eyes of everybody else, and what's in the eyes of Nigeria with the eyes of everybody else? Nigeria is not working, Nigeria is bad, Nigeria is terrible, nothing succeeds, it will not be good, we all have to live to Canada. Hey, how are you doing? I don't know. We have to live to Canada, we have all those things. If you listen to that with the eyes of the general Nigerian populace, you will not be able to notice the little advantages that this society presents. And every society has advantages. So in my study, I run a company called Joy Inc. In my study of happiness, I realized that one of the biggest things that causes depression to rise, even in wealthy countries, is the weather. If you notice, if you are sad, you are likely to be sadder when it's raining than when the sun is shining. If you are sad, wake up in the morning, you are sad, and it's raining and it's drizzling. Your mood goes down even worse with the rain. Now, this is a realistic psychological reality. People who live in cold countries, therefore, are most likely to have more occurrence of deep sadness because the weather, what they call situational depression, makes them even sadder, makes their moods even worse. So that one of the therapies for depression in America is for people to have bulbs in their room that shine as bright as the sun to lift up their moods. Now, all of you here get that therapy free of charge every day. All of you here get that therapy free of charge every day. But you see the tragedy of it? Some of you here listening to this, even though it's certified by research, especially by a guy at the University of Kansas called Stephen Iladi, professor, you will not believe it because this thing I'm saying sounds too simple. So you'll be like, my life is terrible. You cannot tell me anything about Nigeria. You're just trying to encourage me. You're just trying to make me feel better. Therefore, you will not take the advantage that Nigeria's weather gives you over the weather you will find in Massachusetts and Canada and Denmark and Australia and Lithuania. You will not. Every society, every community, every reality has an advantage. If you listen to everybody else, now ask yourself, why am I listening to everybody else? Everybody else is not succeeding. People listen to village wisdom. And like if village wisdom was so great, all the villagers would be wealthy. If village wisdom was so great, every single person in the village. So people come and tell me, my grandmother said to me, I should never, ever do this. So how did it work for your grandmother? And I'm like, if it didn't work so well for her, why are you taking her mistakes that she has congealed into beliefs? The same thing she has been doing over and over and over and over and over again and has not worked for her and for her friends and for her friends' children. Why are you taking that truth as the operating belief of your own life? The thing that I want to teach is the 5 lessons I keep learning over and over and over again from everybody, from Warren Buffett, who is the 2nd richest man in the world, to Maria Brelaki, a woman you don't know, who taught me about how to form and sustain habits. Yeah? the same lesson I learned from Warren Buffett is the same lesson I learned from Maria Beraki. Now, as I was coming, they asked me a question. Are we together? Good. As I was coming, they asked me a question upstairs. They said, Chude, if there's one thing you're going to tell your 14-year-old self, which is when I started my career, what is that one thing going to be? And so I told them a story, a short story. I said, when I came out of secondary school, I was 14. And I came into the world. Now, why I joke about that is because nobody who said secondary school was not the world. It was part of the world. I came out into the world, real life. And I was trying to succeed. And by succeed, I mean succeed economically, because that's what most of you want to do. You've not been taught that you can succeed financially and your relationships are so terrible that you can't be happy. But okay, you will learn it. So I was trying to find out, how do you succeed? And they said, today in Nigeria, you have to know people. You cannot succeed unless you know people. How many of you have heard that? How many of you have not heard that? So everybody has heard it. And so I said, okay, this is what it takes to succeed. That's fine. Then I'm going to know people. Now, this thing I said sounds very simple. Again. But this is what happens instead when many of you hear that. What you immediately hear is, Nigeria is hard. Nigeria is terrible. Life is not fair. I don't know anybody. I can never know anybody. There are certain kinds of people who know people, and I'm not one of them. But you see, when I left secondary school, I didn't know anybody apart from my parents and my family members. I was also shy and introverted, which I still am. I'm so shy and introverted that when I was walking up the staircase, I had to remind myself, if you paid attention, good morning or good afternoon, good morning. That's how shy I am. When I see people in a crowd, I panic. So before I enter into any audience, including this, I have to mentally prepare myself. Because people are going to say hello, they're going to expect me to be confident, and I need to be confident. That's how shy I am. But you can't know that. Why? Because when I came out of secondary school, they told me I had to know people. I said, okay, if that's how we're going to succeed economically in Nigeria, then we're going to do it. I didn't complain. I didn't resist. I didn't talk about how unfair it was. Nothing. I just said, Chude, if this is how they do it in Nigeria, then we are going to do it. Now, when I got into Unilag at 14, I wasn't allowed. For you to enter into Unilag, you have to be 16 years old minimum. Yeah, so some of you are thinking, this man is telling me far back, could you have entered university at 14? And what did I do? I learned it from my mother. My mother said, we're going to go into the school and find who will help us. And my mother was a pastor at MFM, so she wasn't going to do 419 or anything. So her teachers, her friends said, no, you have to do affidavit. Which is what you see, this is how Nigerians operate. There's no way around it. You have to swear an affidavit to increase his age. And so my mother had 3 friends who did that. And my mother said, I'm not going to do that. Why? Because I want him to make heaven. I don't want him to be stuck with a lie that he's going to have to be repeating every year of his life. Yes, my mother said, instead of that, we're going to go to Unilag and we're going to find help. So what did we do? We went to Unilag and we started looking at the doorstep of every single professor to find out, just randomly, which professor is likely to be friendly to us. And we walked into the office of Professor Nwachukwu, one of the most angry and annoying professors in the world. And the professor says, I can't help you. She goes, you should go home and learn trading and then come back in 2 years or apprentice or something. So mother kept going, went to 3 professors, and eventually found their ways into the office of the VC. Professor Akin Akinpelu, Professor Ibidakpo Obi at the time. And we begged the secretary, and my mother said, look, my son is brilliant, look at his exam results, etc. What can we do? And the woman said, professors are giving 5% discretionary admission allowance. That they can admit 5% of the people who apply, even if they don't meet the criteria. And so the woman said, we'll keep coming here until one day you will see the VC coming out. And you can talk to him. Cut a long story short, because it was a long story. Why is it a long story? Because it took us 1 month. In Nigeria, for us to finally meet Professor Oye Bidakwobe, and for my mother and I to make a case to him, and for me to be admitted at the age of 14 or 15 to read law at the University of Lagos. Now, this is what would have happened. My mother could have said, I don't know anybody. And she would have passed a wrong message to me about, because many of your parents do that. Me, anybody, and they begin to send the message to you in your heart that Nigeria is so hard that there is no way for you to succeed because the system has been rigged against you, or that you have to do 419 or be corrupt to succeed in Nigeria. The greatest gift my mother gave me was to teach me that popular wisdom is not always the best wisdom. And to say, today what we are going to do is, since they say we have to know somebody, we are going to go into Unilag and we are going to know somebody. Now, this is why I gave you timelines, dates, and names. It's so that you can go and check out the story for yourself, if you want to. Because many of you don't believe it, that it can be that simple. But let me tell you, it wasn't that simple when we were doing it. Because there was no assurance of success, which is the thing that Chika Nwobi said that was so powerful. What if David had not hit Goliath on the first? What if David hadn't hit Goliath? And he went through, he said David would have used the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth. And if he failed, he would have run away to fight another day. That's how you do it. So David, unlike we seem to think, didn't throw the first stone because he was certain. David was exactly like you. Thinking to himself, it may not work, but thinking to himself, how do I increase my chances of it working? By throwing the first stone. And by having 4 other stones that I can throw in case the first one fails. The first thing I've learned in my life and from all the research is to accept reality. And by reality, I don't mean the stories people are telling you about reality. I mean reality as you can empirically observe it. I asked him to get me the definition of empirical. And empirical is to know what you know by observation and experimentation. It doesn't mean to carry out a long series of research, to pay attention. That means that young people come to me and say they want to go to Canada. And I say, why do you want to go to Canada? They say, because everybody is going to Canada. Everybody? The data shows that the people who have gone to Canada from Nigeria over the past 5 years are not up to 5,000. You have to understand what 5,000 is as a statistic. 5,000 is not up to 1% of the addressable population of adults in Nigeria. 5,000 is not up to 1%. It's so far from 1% that 5,000 is an insignificant number. It's an insignificant number. What happens is village wisdom. Somebody knows somebody who gave a testimony in their church about going to Canada. Somebody knows one person who knows one person who knows one person who knows a grandmother whose son went to Canada. And therefore, the story connects with itself across the country, even though the data doesn't show. That's what I mean by reality. I don't mean the lies you're telling yourself. Because how do banks know who high net worth individuals are? How does MTN determine who high net worth individuals are? MTN looks at those who spend more than 20,000 naira, I think, on their phones every month, that they can afford discretionary spending of 20,000 naira for phone calls. And I assure you that the number of people in Nigeria who are able to be like that, who are considered to be comfortable rich people, are in the millions. So we have 2 sets of data. Everybody is going to Canada. How many? A couple thousands. If I'm making a mistake, I can't be making a mistake more than 10%. And then we have another statistics. How many people are succeeding in Nigeria by the measures of which you want, economically? Millions. What are your chances of succeeding? Stay in Nigeria and make it work? Or be one of the selected hundreds of people each year who are likely to go to Canada and who spend all their energy investing in a lottery? Because that's what deciding that your life is only going to be good in Canada comes to. If there are 500 people who are allowed to go to Canada every month, that means that 4,500 of those people are playing a lottery. Whatever they do, only 500 of them will be in Canada. That's reality. You can do that by ignoring what people tell you about reality and deciding for yourself. Now, once you've decided on reality, because my time is gone, you decide on reality, the second thing you need to do, once you've decided, by reality, I mean this is the opportunity. This is the real opportunity, not the story opportunity you've been told. This is what I can do best or as good as anybody else. This is how I can do it in Nigeria. Or whatever society you find yourself. You now decide, what do I need to do to make this thing possible? That might include training. That might include mentorship. That might include apprenticeship. That might include anything. Go find it. It exists. Then the third one is the most important part of it, because all the research I've seen about any kind of success says this. The people who are, and this is a guy called Jordan Peterson. I recommend his book, 12 Rules for Life. And he says, the one thing that research has shown makes people succeed, the one quality, the one thing, isn't talent. One of the most important books you read is a book called Talent is Overrated. It shows that it's not the most talented people that succeed. It isn't talent. It isn't connections, even though connections will help you eventually. It is something called conscientiousness. Some people call it diligence. The simple word is consistency. Which means when my mother decided, are we paying attention? That the way to get this admission is to find a professor. We thought about it. We considered all the options. Then we focused our energy on one thing. Finding a professor. We did nothing else. We didn't bribe anybody. We didn't look for anybody. We didn't talk to anybody. We focused. Not with an assurance of success, but with an assurance of the preponderance of possible success. That means we are not sure 100% that it will succeed. But we are sure that if anything will succeed, this one is more likely to succeed than anything else. Consistency is the ability to do one thing constantly over an extended period of time, even when it seems like it is not working. Number 4 is to have plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, or as many plans as you're comfortable having. I recommend no more than 2. Because you may have made a mistake. The thing that you decided to choose after you did everything might be a mistake. People make mistakes all the time. Why are you afraid of making a mistake? You think you're going to survive in this life without making a mistake? You are in for a shock. So the sooner you accept that in this your life, you are going to make at least one big mistake, the better you will move on from being afraid of mistakes into making the thing happen. So I say do plan B and plan C so that, so you can be comfortable in your mind. You can tell yourself, okay, if this doesn't succeed, I will do B and C. But you are more likely to succeed if you did 1 and 2 and 3 very well, which is accept reality, decide what you need to do to make it happen, and consistency. Those first 3 help 90% of people who apply them. Now this is the 4th thing. The 5th thing is the final thing. The ability to pay attention. It's something that T.D. Jakes said, and I'm sorry, my time doesn't go up. T.D. Jakes said, it's the 3 minutes I used to talk about chicken would be that went up. T.D. Jakes says, if the thing you are doing is not the thing you are supposed to do, the thing you are supposed to do will come from the thing you are already doing. I just finished reading a book called The Science of Getting Rich by William Watts. Great book. And he said the same thing. He says you must focus all your energy on doing that which you have decided you are going to do. Because what happens, and I give you as evidence A, Wizkid. Wizkid, because everybody knows Wizkid, was already doing what he could do. He wanted to be an international star. Well, nobody ever became an international star by becoming an international star. That's not how you become an international star. You don't show up and become an international star. You start from somewhere. And that somewhere he was pitching his music all around and eventually getting a deal with EME, which was absolutely not an international label and still isn't. Are we together? And it is by doing that consistently, conscientiously, diligently, over an extended period of time. And sometimes even poor people even rich people have the same problem. Davido sang one song and said when he was suffering. And everybody began to laugh at him and say, when will you ever suffer? But guess what Davido didn't do? Till today, he still keeps singing of when he was going through hard times. You people laugh at that, but that's consensuousness, because he understands that to attract majority of Nigerians, you have to think about their experiences, irrespective of who is mocking you. There are many rich kids who have tried to be musicians. It's not just DJ Kupi and Davido, who got discouraged because everybody kept saying it was their parents that made them succeed. I don't want to call names. You go back into the history of Nigerian music, there's so many. These ones succeeded because they ignored the noise. They were consensuous. If it was so easy for rich people to be successful in music, I would count 10 rich people who failed in music. So Wizkid now is doing that, and he's paying attention to what are the opportunities that are coming from what I'm already doing. It was in that doing what he was already doing well, so well that he had hit music, that he met the people who showed him what to do to break into the international space. Now, when you don't do any of those things, none of you, many people, if you don't do that, you don't do it well enough, you don't do it consistently enough, you don't pay attention, then you don't succeed economically as you want. You start looking for, maybe it's Illuminati. Maybe there's one prayer point I have to pray. But guess what? Pagans are making money. Muslims are making money. People who have no faith are making money. It is because you've not done, and I'm telling you, these 5 things, I have not read, and I'm a deep reader of books. And I've managed to achieve some economic success myself. And nothing that this book says that I haven't experienced. The entire thing you're going to read over and over again, as many books will tell you these 5 things. And let me repeat them again before I leave. Accept reality, not village wisdom. Accept what you have observed for yourself to be true. Decide, which is, what can I do? What's the opportunity in this space? What am I good at? Decide what the steps you need to take to make it happen are. If you want to be a great musician, your voice is not good, find out what technology exists. Find out what you need to learn. When Timi Dakolo began to sing in the choir in Port Harcourt, he was told that his voice was awful and he would never succeed. Same thing with Omaomi. Omaomi began to get a vocal range teacher. Once you have decided what you need to do, do it consistently. Especially when it doesn't look like it is working. Knowing that you are probably going to make a mistake at some point in your life. Have a plan B and C and D and carry your fears and dash them to plan B and C. So you say, it may not work, therefore I take my fear. If it doesn't work, I'll do B and C. So can I now focus on A? And then finally, pay attention. Because if it is not what you are supposed to be doing, what you are already doing, if you do it with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, it will eventually lead you to the thing that you are actually supposed to do. Thank you very much. In 2016, I went through what doctors would call a major depressive episode. It took about 3 months. At that time, I had already begun to have some kind of economic success and some kind of fame and all of that. And typically, the life I was living at that time is the kind of life that a number of people in our society looked forward to, wanted to be. And yet it did not insulate me from congealed unhappiness, which is what I call depression. And so that made me begin to not reconsider because I had been reconsidering, but begin to actively think about life in a very different way. What truly makes life worth living? And that journey led me to understand that economic success is far from the complete picture. Yeah? And that there are other elements that make life completely worth living. Happiness researchers have some kind of framework that includes health, relationships, meaning, happiness, and something else I forget. And the perfect balance of those 5 things is what makes a person feel fulfilled, so to speak. And those were not conversations or concerns that Nigerians were thinking about on a cultural level. And when I say cultural level, I mean in a popular discussion, what is on social media, what do you discuss at the offices, what drives decision making. And I thought that somebody needed to ensure that people were having this conversation. And that's why I decided to start JIDENWO. Essentially, how do you get people to understand that happiness and fulfillment and flourishing come beyond just the making of money and the achievement of fame. All the research about success in anything still comes down to one thing: the ability to do the things you need to do consistently and determinedly over an extended period of time, and that there is no shortcut to it. That's the thing I want the person to take away. Your life is really in your hands. You know, I was telling somebody, that's so profound. I was telling somebody last week that when I came out of secondary school, I didn't know anyone apart from my parents, my family. And I heard that the way to succeed in Nigeria was to know people. I heard, yeah? And I thought, okay, if that's it, then I will know people. You know, I didn't argue with it, I didn't stress about it, I didn't reject it, I wasn't upset by it. I just thought, if that's what it is, then I'm going to know people. My very first job in the world, I got in MFM just down the road here, because I was sitting down at something they called, there was a deliverance thing for 1 week, and we fasted for 3 days. And I was tired. On the 4th day, we were breaking our fast in church here. And I looked back behind me, and there was a guy sitting down there. His name was JIDENWO. At the time, he was the biggest TV presenter in the entire country. And I said to my mother, that's JIDENWO, and I have something I want to talk to him about. My mother says, walk up to him and talk to him. And I walked up to him and talked to him. And that's how I knew him, and that's how I got my first job. And constantly through my life, that's how I began to meet and know people. And so I learned very early that, you know, when people tell you what reality is, there's a sense for people to get upset. It's almost as if people expect that the world should just be waiting, everything should just align. So somebody says, this is what you use to succeed, in this case economically, in this environment. Instead people just accept that and be like, okay, so let's do it. They say it's not fair, it's not right, it's not proper, it's not good, it's not etc. And then they become distressed. And once you become distressed, and you assume that the authority is not in your hands, it is in other people's hands. And that's absolutely not true. Fear is the thing that I would tell myself to avoid. Just the fear of life. The fear that, you know, so you sit down with every young person like me at that time. They come to me, all these young people come to me, like this amazing young man. They come to me and they say, I put him on the spot. I want to ask you a question. There's something I want to ask you. I'm like, what is it? Say, I'm afraid. What's wrong? Am I going to succeed? I'm like, that's so boring. Everybody is afraid. You ask this man, you ask this man, you ask this man. You ask him. Well, maybe not him, because he looks like he's figured it out. But you ask them, you're like, what is the thing? What's the thing that's worrying you? Like, am I going to succeed? I'm afraid I may not succeed. That's everything. There's nothing special about that question. It's a boring question. All of us ask it, all of us feel it. Good. Yeah? So when I tell them that, then they calm down. Like, that's the thing. But the thing is that if that question makes you afraid rather than excited, two things are likely to happen. You're likely to make mistakes, a lot of mistakes, because fear leads to hustle rather than creating value. Or you are likely to succeed by chance, but without peace of mind. Because what happens is, if you're not afraid and you say, this is what I'm supposed to do, and you do it, you keep doing it better, you keep learning, you keep constantly. Not hustling doesn't mean not working hard, you keep doing it. But if you're afraid, and that's the book I'm reading by one of the UK's biggest economists. If you begin to be afraid and you begin to try this one, and after 2 weeks you try this one, after 3 weeks you try this one. Now, you may be lucky and one of those things work. But more often than not, for most of the people, you know them, you have friends. We have family members that have been moving from business to business to business since they were born. They're doing this lotto, this investment. They come to you, let's do this, let's do MMM, let's do KKK, let's do. They have something that they are always doing. And yet it doesn't work out for them. There are so many of them. And people are irritated. But what's driving that person is fear. So fear is unable to make the person think, let me do this job. Let me do it well. Let me get promoted. Let me learn new skills. Like that, the person's like, what if that doesn't work? And then because of that, the person starts doing 100 things, 99 of which are likely to fail. Not that the person doesn't achieve what they want to achieve. It happens all the time. There's evidence all around. So fear is the greatest contaminant of purpose. Greatest. Upgrade is trying to change the lives and transform the lives of millions, using those in the hall, as agents of that change. I've seen and heard of people whose lives have been changed, who have discovered purpose, who have gotten strength and support by attending this event. And I therefore want to excitedly recommend that you put it in your calendar for this year.
I know you've got a whole lot of this, trust me, you've got a whole lot of this. But this one, I wanted to keep it somewhere that there's a group of young people that really appreciate you and believe in you strongly, that you keep inspiring them. So put it somewhere, you keep saying it almost every day, and just remember that there's a new generation that really, really love and appreciate you. So to do that this morning, I would like to call Fedi to please come present this award to CHUDE this morning. Let's appreciate Fedi as a comes this morning. CHUDE, you're a gift to us. And you know you are, because I've known CHUDE for maybe 15 years. And in all those 15 years, CHUDE has come through for me more times than anybody else can know. So if I get to write a biography, there's a chapter that's the entrance of CHUDE. And today I celebrate all that you've created and all that you've built. So on behalf of Upgrade, this is the Pioneer Award for the many things that through your imaginative abilities that you have created. We celebrate you. And on behalf of Upgrade, this is a token of honor to you.